explained by Lord Krishna in the beginning of creation when he instructed Lord Brahma. The same philosophy which Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, which he is telling Arjuna, I instructed this science of Bhagavad Gita to Sun God millions of years back. Imam vivasvate yogam proktavanaham avyayam. This imperishable science of yoga is always there, but sometimes this knowledge becomes lost. He was asked by one of his disciples, how can the knowledge get lost? So Prabhupada says, when it is not properly received in the parampara system. So in human society, this method of speculation in order to understand the truth or discover some knowledge, this method has always existed. Because the conditioned souls are essentially having this disease of trying to be independent. So all created beings are conditioned souls. Conditioned souls means they are influenced by the illusory energy which works in two ways. This illusory energy works in two ways. Prakshepatmika Shakti and Avaranatmika Shakti. Avaranatmika Shakti is the influence of the illusory energy to cover our real knowledge. As spirit soul, our fundamental characteristic is Satchit Ananda. Sat means we are eternal beings, and Chit means we have knowledge about ourself as spirit, and Ananda means we are by nature blissful as spirit soul, part and parcel of the Supreme Spirit Krishna. We are by our original nature, we are always blissful. But when we get covered by this illusory influence of this material energy, when we are placed in this material world, we get covered. So then we forget, we are put into forgetfulness of our original nature, of our real understanding of our real self, and we mistakenly identify ourselves with the material energy, with matter, beginning with false ego. That's the beginning of material existence. Material identity. There's nothing like material identity. Nothing, it does not exist as identity. Material energy is simply a interaction of the three gunas, the three modes of material nature. You see how this material creation itself is simply a presentation of the same material energy by the interaction of the gunas on the material elements. which are again the differentiation of the energy itself in the form of the 8 elements. Bhumirapo nalo vayu khammano buddhirevacha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakriti rashtada. Now, if somebody analyzes matter, however intelligent or expert one may be in such analysis, one will be unable to understand matter as consisting of not only the 5 gross elements, Panchabhuta, everything that is manifest as material objects, that is consisting of this 5 elements, Panchabhuta, including our gross body. But there is the 3 subtle elements which is making up our subtle body, which is not manifest in the material objects that we are dealing with. So these subtle elements are not readily perceived by the external 5 senses, and the very subtle elements, mind, intelligence and false ego, these elements are combined to form our subtle body. See, the subtle body is unknown to the modern scientists, totally unknown, and they limit their study and research and understanding to only these external gross body, or the 5 elements, the gross body made of 5 elements, because they are so overwhelmed by the material energy itself that they say we accept only that which can be perceived by the 5 senses, even though it's common sense understanding that there is something beyond this that we all know. It is very much within our experience. Like nobody has any doubt that apart from these this gross body, we have experience of something called mind. And then there is intelligence, and there is ego. What we call ego is actually the false ego. It's not the real ego. Ego means identity. So identity in terms of the gross body or the subtle body is not the real identity of ourself. So even if somebody studies the Vedic scriptures and tries to understand that there are 8 elements of which matter is made of, Krishna also explains this in the 7th chapter, 4th verse. But Bhagavad Gita reveals to us that material energy also consists of 3 gunas. Now this understanding of material energy consisting of 3 gunas, even among Vedic scholars who thoroughly study the Vedas, even they do not know this. So, many times I explain to people who say, I want to understand something about Bhagavad Gita, that there are so many secrets that are revealed in the Bhagavad Gita that will be missed out if you don't study Bhagavad Gita under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master coming in the disciplic succession, parampara system. It is right there in the Bhagavad Gita. There's a verse. Sattvam rajas tama iti guna prakriti sambhavaha nibadnanti mahabaho dehe dehinam avyayam. 14th chapter. It's an entire chapter dedicated for explaining the three modes of material nature. And Krishna says, the very translation I'll read, I think it's 14.3 or something like that. 14.5. Sattvam rajas tama iti guna prakriti sambhavaha nibadnanti mahabaho dehe dehinam avyayam. Material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the living entity comes in contact with nature, material nature, he becomes conditioned by these modes. So you have heard this term many times. Prabhupada uses conditioned soul. What is the meaning of conditioned soul? When we take birth in this material world, being forced by material nature to accept a material body, then this material body consists of a gross body and a subtle body. So the gross body is made up of 5 elements: Bhumi, Rama, Po, Nalo, Vayu, Kham, earth, water, fire, air and sky. But the subtle body is made up of 3 subtle elements: Manas, Buddhi, Ahankara. And the entire body is actually conditioned. Now the word conditioned itself I have to explain. What is conditioned? It is conducted. One sense of the word condition is conducted by the 3 gunas. What are the 3 gunas? All around us, we know there is this material nature that is working. That's an energy. Energy means it has got some force, some power. What is that power of the material energy? That is the power of the 3 gunas. The 3 gunas are the influence of this material energy on our consciousness. Influence of the material energy on our consciousness. Just like different people behave according to certain characteristic influence of these gunas. We say some person is a sattvic person. What does it mean? That person is predominantly influenced by sattva guna, one of the 3 gunas in material nature, working in material nature. Somebody is a rajasic person, predominantly influenced by rajoguna. Tamasic person, predominantly influenced by tamoguna. But there is no such thing as somebody influenced only by sattva guna. No. It is always a combination of the influence of these three gunas in different proportions. Different proportions. So, everyone is influenced by the three gunas, all the created beings, including the animals, the insects, the worms. Every living being who has accepted a material body, whichever species, is influenced by these three gunas in different proportions. The demigods and the sages and the beings in the upper planets, they are more influenced by sattva guna, greater proportion of sattva guna. And the human beings on the earth planet are in between. Less of sattva guna and a little more proportion of rajoguna. And as we go lower planets, the beings in the lower planets, more of tamoguna influence. So many times Srila Prabhupada says, what is called as material advancement of civilization, they are advancing in the mode of passion, in rajoguna. Rajoguna. So therefore you see so much of development of technology. This is actually the influence of the rajoguna. Rajoguna, constantly they have to keep on working for improving technology or whatever field they are working on. And they have to produce so many things, so many different products of this development of technology. You see? But what they don't realize is that they are simply working under an influence of these gunas, and they are not actually becoming enlightened. They are not advancing in real understanding of the truth. Why? Because they are becoming more and more entangled in the complexities of this material nature. That they are not realizing. That's what Prabhupada says here in this purport. A man tries to be happy by achieving the fruits of his own honest labor. But actually he becomes more and more entangled. Working under the influence of the gunas, whatever work we do, that work will actually bind us more and more and more and more. We become more entangled. We are already entangled. By birth, everyone is entangled already. And the proof of this entanglement is the very body we have accepted. We have nothing to do with this body because we are pure spirit soul. We have our original spiritual body or spiritual form. But because we want to enjoy independently, because we want to be independent of Krishna, or we want to compete with Krishna, we want to take Krishna's position, we want to be the independent enjoyers, or we are envious of Krishna, we want to forget Krishna. Different reasons are given in different places in the Shastra. Why we are placed in this material world. How is it we have come here, though we don't belong to this place? We belong to the spiritual world. We belong to Krishna. Then why are we here? It's because of our desire. Ichha. Ichha Shakti, that desiring potency, we are misusing to be independent, to forget Krishna, to take Krishna's position, etc. So then we are placed in this material energy, and the material energy is working in a subtle way that we don't know. The first thing that happens is we identify with material energy. We think we are a product of this matter. We think in terms of, I am this body. Or sometimes when people consider themselves knowledgeable or advanced in understanding what is this matter, then they identify with the mind or the intelligence or the false ego. That is also simply a material covering for the actual spirit soul, for the real self. So it begins with misidentification with matter. And then this misidentification becomes very complicated when we start actually exploiting the resources of material nature for our independent enjoyment, or we try to lord over material nature when actually we are completely bound up by material nature. See, the bondage is very evident when we are restricted by material nature itself, by the body itself that we have got. Just like every body, there is some facility for a particular type of enjoyment, or some facility for some kind of activity that we may perform, or something we may do. But also there are restrictions. So when we are restricted, we try to become free from these restrictions by our own endeavors, different kinds of endeavors. And then when we falsely think that we have overcome the restriction, then we become more entangled. So-called freedom that people think they are having or they are achieving by their own efforts is actually bewilderment by the illusory energy. Sarva bhutani sammoham sarge yanti parantapa. Everything is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Ichha dvesha samuthena dvandva mohena bharata sarva bhutani sammoham sarge yanti parantapa. At the beginning of creation, every living being is given this material body conditioned by the duality of desire and hatred. Ichha dvesha samuthena. See, nobody is born only with likes. Everybody has got by birth, by the very nature of this material creation, everybody has got something they like and something else they don't like. Likes and dislikes. Ichha dvesha. So this ichha dvesha samuthena. Simultaneously these are present in our consciousness. So I like something, I don't like something else. And a whole lot of such likes and dislikes is the complex mentality that we have acquired in association with this material nature. And this is giving rise to dvandva. Dvandva means duality. We have to accept so many impositions of the material energy. Just because I don't like cold weather, so therefore, when there is cold, I experience lot of inconvenience. It's very funny, you see. Just like people who are living in the, let's say, the Western countries, which is relatively colder than India. When they come to India, they can't tolerate even a little bit of warm weather. They can't tolerate even a little bit of warm weather. Like I had visited Dehradun recently, and I'm seeing this. It is just the beginning of cold, sometime in November. Last month I was there. So, persons like me, coming specially from the South India, wearing warm clothes, so much of sweater and all that. And you see these Westerners, they're walking around practically without any clothes even, because they're feeling very hot. So hot, so hot, so hot. So obviously, they don't like the hot weather. And conversely, when we go to America, the freezing cold, especially in the winter when there is snow, oh, they like it so much. I don't know whether you're aware, they play in this, when there is a snowfall and snow is very fresh, it's not hardened into ice, they play with that snow. Kids play with that snow and they like it. And for us to step out of the heated, centrally heated home or office, it is like a punishment. So what is this? Somebody likes cold, somebody likes hot. This is simply our conditioning, that's all. There is nothing to like or dislike, because we are not this body, we have nothing to do with this body. That is how you see the yogis, when they practice tapasya and they are sitting in that freezing cold in Himalayas, when they are completely absorbed in meditation, then they are not affected by snow or blazing fire or anything like that. They are totally unaffected, because they have detached themselves from this body. They are totally detached from the body. So in that detached condition, you have nothing to do with cold or heat. But that doesn't mean that before we actually become actually detached from this body, we cannot adjust our mind and try to concoct that, oh, I am unaffected by heat or cold. No, you cannot. You have to experience this heat and cold, these dualities of the imposition of material nature. Just like unless we are free from the false ego, ahankara, we have to be affected by insult and honor. So actually, spiritual advancement is not a mental adjustment. It's not adjusting the mind to be unaffected by insult or honor, to be unaffected by heat and cold. No. When Krishna says, Sukha dukkhe same krutva labha labhau jaya jayau, he says that you have to rise above these dualities of sukha, dukkha, profit, loss, cold and heat, honor, dishonor, happiness, distress. It doesn't mean that you make a mental adjustment. No. Similarly, knowledge is not some mental speculation. Acquiring knowledge means not some mental speculation by which you theorize, you analyze, you theorize, and you speculate, and you arrive at some conclusions, or some observations, or some inferences, or some theories. No. So, Prabhupada explains here, knowledge means to receive knowledge itself from the scriptures through the medium of a bona fide spiritual master who is coming in parampara. Clearly Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu. Krishna instructed this science of yoga, the Bhagavad Gita, to Sun God, and the Sun God passed it down to his son. Vivaswan passed it down to Vaivasvata Manu, and Vaivasvata Manu handed it down to Ikshvaku. Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavanam Avyayam Vivaswan Manave Praha Manurikshvakave Bravit Evam Parampara Praptam Imam Rajarshayo Viduhu. So this knowledge is originally given by Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, the ultimate source of everything, including all knowledge. And it is handed down by those who receive from Krishna to their sons or disciples or their successors. And as Prabhupada often says, he is receiving this knowledge which he is presenting to us in all his books and his discourses. He is receiving in this Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya or Parampara. So Prabhupada is listing the spiritual masters in Parampara, the Acharyas in Parampara, the Gurus in Parampara, through whom this knowledge is coming down. And Prabhupada is simply presenting whatever he has received from his Guru. That is knowledge. That is what Prabhupada is explaining here. Not his concoction or his mental speculation, no. So all these philosophers who are not receiving this knowledge in parampara, they're simply speculating, theorizing, constructing some hypothesis, doing some experiment, so many things. But as in Chaitanya Charitamrita it is explained, we are all conditioned souls, means we got 4 defects imposed by material nature due to the gunas, that we have got limited senses, so we cannot actually perceive the reality simply by utilizing these senses, the sensory power. And the limitation of sense is also very obvious, that these eyes can see something which is of a certain dimension. Very small or very big we cannot see, or even if we can see, we cannot properly understand. It's like sunrise time, if you are able to see the sun in the horizon, just one disk this big. But is the sun that big? What we see with our eyes? No. So like that, our senses are imperfect. And then we are prone to commit mistakes. However much we try to perfect our understanding or our work itself, there is always the tendency to commit mistakes because of our very nature of our body and mind system. This body and mind system is conducted by the three gunas. And the gunas are actually influencing us to work in a particular way or to understand things in a particular way or to think in a particular way. So our whole thinking, feeling, willing, working, acting, seeing, doing, imagining, understanding is completely conducted by the three gunas. So where is the possibility of understanding the truth, of knowing the truth, of discovering the truth under the influence of the gunas? Therefore, Krishna explains in the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where he explains that every living being by birth is conditioned by these three gunas and therefore cannot have any perfect knowledge independently. And therefore the knowledge has to be received. And even to receive knowledge, we have to receive this knowledge after becoming free from the influence of the gunas. This knowledge has to be heard without being biased or without being influenced by the gunas. So Krishna gives a technique by which we can become free of the influence of the gunas. Mam chayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityetan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One can become free from the influence of the gunas by pure devotional service. So we have to practice, we have to engage in pure devotional service. Avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. And there's no other way to become free of the influence of the gunas. And then when we are free of the influence of the gunas, in that state of consciousness, free from the influence of the gunas, when we hear from the bona fide spiritual master, then perfect knowledge is actually awakened, enlightened within ourselves. Only then. So therefore, the process of knowledge is again described in the 13th chapter. See, 13th chapter has got some secrets, many secrets. In the 13th chapter, knowledge is described by Krishna as knowledge of Kshetra and Kshetrajna. If you know what is Kshetra and Kshetrajna, that is called as knowledge. And if you want to get actual knowledge of Kshetra and Kshetrajna, there is a process of acquiring this knowledge. And that is described also as Jnanam in verse numbers 8 to 12, 13.8 to 12. There are 20 items of knowledge. Prabhupada explains these 20 items of knowledge are the means by which you can get the actual knowledge of Kshetra and Kshetrajna. See, the third verse in the 13th chapter describes Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata kshetra kshetrajnayor jnanam yatta jnanam matam mama. So, in the third verse of the 13th chapter, Krishna says what is knowledge. He defines what is knowledge. And in the verses 8 to 12, he describes the process of knowledge. That's why the process of knowledge entails 20 items of knowledge, you don't see anything about knowledge itself. You see the process. Amanitvam, adambhitvam, ahimsa, kshantirarjavam. Yeah? You have to become humble. You have to become prideless. Amanitvam, adambhitvam, ahimsa. You have to become non-violent. Then only you can get this knowledge. You can acquire this knowledge. You can receive this knowledge. You see? So, process of knowledge. So, 13th chapter describes jnana in two ways. One is, what is actually knowledge? Knowledge of kshetra and kshetrajna. And the process of knowledge is also described as jnana. 20 items of knowledge. So, this is the perfect way Krishna has presented Bhagavad Gita. But who can understand this Bhagavad Gita? Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. One who has developed faith in the spiritual master. Such a person can actually receive this knowledge from the spiritual master. A person faithful who has got faith, Shraddha. So Shraddha is the beginning of knowledge, or Shraddha is the beginning of bhakti. Now, in the 4th chapter, Krishna also explains there is no difference between pure devotional service and transcendental knowledge. There is no difference. So same thing Prabhupada says here. One cannot get out of this entanglement unless he has perfect knowledge or devotional service. So perfect knowledge is same as devotional service, or devotional service same as perfect knowledge. So, in essence, we have to practice bhakti, yoga, and by advancing in bhakti yoga practice, coming to the stage of pure devotional service, we actually become enlightened, we become perfect, we get proper understanding, we are able to act on the platform of this proper knowledge. Jnana Vijnana. Jnana is the knowledge itself, the theoretical knowledge. And Vijnana is the realization or the activities performed on the platform of this understanding. So Lord Kapila, he has presented both Jnana and Vijnana in explaining this Sankhya philosophy. So I'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.